Well, good good morning, everybody, and welcome to this Aqilla Making Tax Digital webinar for our customers. I'm Simon Lee. I'm responsible for the support team here at Aqilla, amongst other things, so I know most of you already. Now, many of you have been asking about MTD. This morning's session is intended to bring you all up to speed on the hot topic of the moment, at least in the world of VAT. I'm going to run through 3 slides explaining the who, what, when, and how of MTD and how Aqilla implemented it. I'll then run through the first few steps of MTD using live Aqilla software. Now, obviously, my Aqilla demo company is not a real company, so it's not VAT registered and it doesn't have a government gateway account. So I'll show you some screenshots of other parts of the process, like how you actually submit a return. So, who? You fall within the scope of MTD if you're VAT registered with a taxable turnover above the registration threshold. And you can forget about exemptions unless, and this is from the HMRC website, your business is run entirely by practicing members of a religious society whose beliefs are incompatible with using computers. I kid you not. But exemptions will be very rare. Now, as you may know, last week in the spring statement, the Chancellor said that there would be no fines in the first year of MTD for companies who are trying their best. So what? In a nutshell, you don't run your VAT 100 report in Aqilla and then transcribe the 9 boxes manually. Aqilla files the return for you. There is no human intervention. Now, the procedure is that you register for MTD with HMRC, but note you can't file online again once you've done that. So, be cautious about when you actually do the registration. Through Aqilla itself, you grant Aqilla permission to interact with HMRC on your behalf, and I'll show you that in just a moment. Now, as you probably know, we're already listed by HMRC under the Software Available Now section as covering all areas specified by HMRC. That's digital record keeping, submitting a VAT return, viewing a VAT return, viewing VAT liabilities, and viewing VAT payments. And the when is, as shown on the slide, it's from the first VAT period starting on or after 1st of April 2019, unless you are deferred. There are a few grounds for deferral. Certainly, VAT groups will be one of them. Please refer to HMRC's documentation about this. It's starting to get much better. I was looking at it the other day, and there's some quite decent videos explaining some of the topics. I'd start by going to Making Tax Digital for VAT, and we can send you the URL if you need it. And as I'm sure you'll understand, Aqilla doesn't provide tax advice, so obviously we're not here to interpret HMRC's advice to you. Right, how? MTD is not about how you calculate a return, it's about how you file it. And Aqilla is talking to the HMRC systems through HMRC's API, which is Application Program Interface, and it does 2 things. When you press the button in Aqilla, it files a return to HMRC. And if you use some of the query functions in Aqilla to see, for example, your liabilities to HMRC or the payments you've made, Aqilla queries HMRC and HMRC returns data to Aqilla, which is displayed within Aqilla. Right, the Aqilla implementation. MTD was built into Aqilla in 2018, but it's been hidden from clients until we and HMRC were ready. In fact, we used it to file our VAT return in December, and we will be using it to file our March return this month. That actually is part of HMRC's QA process for a live company to file a live return. And of course, we use Aqilla, so that was the obvious live system to test. In version 1903, which we plan to release on Saturday, along with detailed help on the whole subject, we'll expose the new MTD functionality to our clients, i.e. you guys. And I'll show you how to switch MTD on in a moment. What you will see is that when you do switch MTD on, a new report called HMRC VAT MTD will appear under the Reports tab. And it's important to note that the existing VAT 100 report turns into effectively views of history as soon as you've switched MTD on in Aqilla. Right, that's enough slides for now. I'm now going to show you my demo Aqilla instance. This is exactly the same version that you're all using at the moment, but because I'll be logging on as an Aqilla user, I have access to the MTD switch that you should see on Monday morning. And after I've shown you the live software, we'll look at some screenshots of the rest of the process. Right, so to switch Making Tax Digital on, you go to Configuration, and then Companies. This, by the way, is a multi-company within a single instance implementation. So you pick the company you want to run MTD for, you open the VAT reporting section, and you make sure that you've got a VAT registration number and that you've got your reporting periods properly set up, and you click on Yes for enabling HMRC VAT MTD. What that then does is it creates a new report called HMRC VAT MTD, and the first time that you run that, you'll be taken to an HMRC dialog. And it's important to stress that every time you see a window branded with gov.uk, you're actually talking to HMRC. You're not talking to Aqilla, you're talking to HMRC. And whilst we can give you some general guidance about how to use their systems, we can't help you with any of your main issues with HMRC. So the first screen is basically saying, Aqilla needs permission from you to interact with HMRC on your behalf. Is that okay? You then continue, and you'll be, first of all, prompted to sign in using your government gateway credentials. That's as far as I can take it with live software, because obviously I'm not a VAT registered company. But if you do go to the Making Tax Digital for VAT HMRC page, you'll find there's a little video that takes you through the signing on process, also through the registration process. It's pretty straightforward. Right, so screenshots from here on in. When you do first register, you'll be taken to this report. So this is what you'd see on your first successful log on, and any time after that for up to 18 months, which is the period of time that permission to use Aqilla to access MTD lasts for. I've got to say, it's a really nice design, and credit to our devs. As you'll see, it's split into 3 sections: VAT returns and obligations, liabilities and payments. And you can expand or contract each section as you wish. There's also embedded help, which you can show or hide. It's so intuitive that you'll have no trouble using it, I'm sure. Let's have a look at what each section contains. First of all, VAT returns and obligations. Obviously, you have obligations to submit returns to HMRC, and when they are submitted, they become returns, and you can see that the status is either fulfilled or open. It's pretty straightforward. It's the date for the return, when it's due, when it was received, and you'll see you also have the opportunity to view details and create a new return, which obviously you can only get for an obligation that is open. So if you look at a fulfilled VAT return, you'll see there's the familiar 9 boxes. It tells you the status, which is submitted, who submitted it, when it was submitted, the period that it covers, and the 9 boxes. And what you see on the right-hand side are 2 columns. One is the HMRC total. So that data is actually coming from HMRC, and it's saying, this is what we have on record. The blue boxes are the Aqilla total, and they will always match, unless, for example, you're looking at a return that was submitted through a previous system, which isn't in Aqilla. From the blue boxes in the Aqilla total column, you can drill down to the VAT detail inquiry, which you'll all be familiar with. So an open obligation is basically a return that has not yet been filed, and the buttons that you get are fairly self-explanatory. So I'm just going to give you a few minutes to look at this screenshot. So when you click Submit to HMRC, obviously you get an "Are you sure?" message per HMRC's requirements. And then once it's submitted, that's job done. Right, so the liabilities section, and we're on the home straight now. This is data from HMRC. So Aqilla is displaying what HMRC says that you owe them. And if you disagree, ask them, not us, because this is their data. This is HMRC data. Similarly, with payments, this is data from HMRC. Aqilla is displaying what HMRC says you have paid them. And be aware that HMRC systems, for example, liabilities, don't always update instantaneously. So be patient when you're using the MTD system.